G'day, amateurs. It's Lions year, and this is Wallaby Watch, where we keep tabs on those likely to oppose the British and Irish Lions this summer. And I've got my main man down under, Barto, to help me with it. Barto, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Tim. Good morning to you. Afternoon from me.
Absolutely. Okay, there's going to be a lot of that this summer, of course. Now then, the first thing I wanted to really dig into is what is the kind of Australian thoughts about the Six Nations as that's coming to a close up in this hemisphere?
Yeah, there's been some interesting comments around it in the last couple of weeks. Nick Phibbs, former Australian halfback who went and played over in the UK for a while, had piped up just last week saying that, Super Rugby is so much better than European rugby and how much more structured the, Six Nations is and all of that. So that's a big thing they're commenting on. The biggest thing is you will find, certainly down here, you don't get as many people watching the Six Nations, like Australians and Kiwis and that don't necessarily watch it unless they're expats. There's shows with it. I can watch, all the matches are on Stan Sport down here, which a lot of people have and do watch. The beliefs on it this year is certainly sort of topsy-turvy, which I suppose everyone across the world is seeing, because you've got, England with a chance to win it, Ireland with a chance to win it, France with a chance to win it, Scotland with a chance to win it. France outright favourites probably with this weekend, but they're always commenting that no one ever seems to just stand out. It's always a very close competition. There's a lot of talk this week that England going to Cardiff, when you see how Wales have performed this year, you'd expect it to be a relatively comfortable match for England, but we all know that that's not the case. But down here, they'll just say, oh, well, England should win it, and if they don't, then they're rubbish. That's pretty much how they look at it, whereas we know it's very different. You go to Wales in Cardiff, they haven't won a match this year in the series, and it will be, I think Jamie George said it will be like their World Cup final. It really will, and that will be very true come Saturday.
Yeah, and that is the absolute beauty of the Six Nations. It's why we all love it so much, but it's so interesting to get that different perspective. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the Australians now, because Super Rugby is about a quarter of the way, I think, through their season, and the Australian teams are doing okay, aren't they?
Yeah, this year they are. So week 5, this starts tonight in a couple of hours. Big change to the Australian teams. Obviously, the Melbourne Rebels were dismantled last year because they went into administration, and their talent was spread to the other 4 franchises, and that's made a massive difference. It's strengthened all 4 of them. I would say Australian rugby can cope with 4 teams. They struggle with 5 because you just dilute the talent. And what happens then is you've got guys who probably shouldn't be in Super Rugby squads who are. Whereas now you've got 4 strong squads. Every squad has a number of Wallabies in it, potential Wallabies, and people coming through. So they've got depth. 12 months ago, everyone was sort of crying out thinking, why are we bothering with this Lions tour? I heard that quite a bit on social media. It's going to be 3-0 to the Lions. Well, there's a different outlook now. I think there's a real different outlook because there's a real competition for places down here, and that strength in depth in each one of those 4 clubs that's left is making that competition much stronger, and I believe it will make Wallaby squads much stronger for the Lions tour.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. It's good to hear for everybody because we want a competitive series. We absolutely want that. Everybody wants that. So that's good. Now, what about some of the big players in the Australian squad? How are they shaping up? Are they coming through and sort of playing strongly this year?
Yeah, most of them. I think the best news is that most of them are pretty injury-free. Jake Gordon, who was the incumbent scrum half, he's copped an injury, and I'm not sure if he's going to get himself back. Personally, I think there's better scrum halves anyway, so I don't believe it's a huge loss. But a lot of them are fit and playing really well. There's competition in critical positions. So at 7, there's Fraser McWright, who's probably he was the incumbent and playing very well. He's playing well, but there's also Carlo Tizzano, who's over at the Western Force, who is having a fantastic beginning of this year. And there's, I believe, quite a newcomer to the scene, down at the Brumbies, Luke Reamer, who has just been outstanding this year. He is like a jackler from heaven. He gets on. Every time he goes for the ball, he gets it. He chooses when to go, and he'll get 2 or 3 turnovers a match. He just seems to just go, right, That's me. I can get it, gets it, turns it over. So he's doing a fantastic job for the Brumbies.
Amazing. And there was some beef, wasn't there, between Tisano and somebody in the English squad? What was that story? I heard that recently.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure actually, but he is quite outspoken. He's a hell of a young player. He's a big, solid player, sort of similar build to Pocock. Does a lot of hard work, a lot of that unseen work as well, off the ball where he's just constantly working to support. So the stuff that, doesn't always get recognised because he's always in support, only every now and then is he needed. But he really does make a hard yards for the force at the moment. But Fraser McWright just today has announced he's just signed again for the Wallabies and the Queensland Reds, another 2 or 3 year deal. In fact, that's right across the board. They've signed recently in the last 3 weeks. The Wallabies have signed Fraser McWright, Harry Wilson, Matt Fessler, Lucan Salakai Lotto, Nick Frost, and Jeremy Williams. So six of their top players have all re-signed through till after the World Cup. So that's really good news for them.
Okay, amazing. And of course, with Lions, we always love a bolter story, somebody who comes out of nowhere and ends up playing in the Test series. Are there any potential Australian bolters for this series?
Yeah, I'd say there's possibly two. So one's a bit of a bolter. Not he did play. I think he played one Wallaby match last year. Young lad called Josh Canham, second row. He's at the Reds. Was at Melbourne. He's one of those guys who's benefited probably from Melbourne being disbanded. He's gone to the Reds. He's put a bit of bulk on over the off season. He's an extremely athletic second row who plays probably a bit like Ollie Chesham. He's got that sort of back row, second row sort of position nailed down. Fantastic line out jumper, good ball carrier, really quick. And then there's a young lad who started, I think it was his first Super Rugby game last week at 10 for the Brumbies, Declan Meredith. Now, I've never heard of him before, and he controlled the game. And last week, the Brumbies beat the Blues at Eden Park for the first time in 13 or 14 years. And he was running the show at 10, which is really good because it's probably the one position that the Wallabies don't know who should play there. They've got a number of guys who they've tried, Lolesio, Tom Liner, Ben Donaldson, a number of these guys, but no one's really stood out and put their hand up and said, right, I'm the one. And this Declan Meredith last week had an absolutely outstanding game. So look out for him. He may well be starting again this week. Hopefully get to see him, get more game time and get some experience. And he could be a bolter for the Wallabies squad.
Well, bolter in the fly earth jersey, that would be something. And we might be seeing that with the Lions as well, with the likes of Sam Prendergast going pretty well this championship. What about anything sort of tactical or sort of technical that the Australian teams are doing this year in the Super Rugby, Barto? Have you seen any sort of trends at all that have been going on that we might want to be aware of?
The attacking game is very good. I think if you've seen the scores, they're out there. And I know there's a lot of comments up north around, there can't be much defence. And in some respects, that's probably quite true. They have a go. The Australian teams are beginning to have a go from wherever. Sometimes they're detriment. Last week, the Reds especially, who've probably been the strongest Australian team, were having a go from their own 22 against the Crusaders. And there's some criticism of that, saying, well, you've still got to earn the right to be able to have a go, and especially when you're playing against such a structured team as the Crusaders. So, but that is something that's right across the board. All of those 4 Australian teams are now much, much more prepared to throw the ball around and have a good go at what's in front of them. Sometimes it might be their undoing. When it gets to the Wallabies level, I think Joe Schmidt has a bit more of a conservative approach, but still likes them to play what's in front of them. So if there's space, they will definitely be confident enough to have a crack. But Joe Schmidt is a lot more about, hey, let's earn that right. Let's get to the right areas of the field before we just chance our arm.
Amazing. Okay, we'll bring this one to a close there. Barto, thank you so much for your time today. Is there any closing thoughts for this very first episode in Wallaby Watch that you want to share with us?
No, just be some good games this weekend. Probably the biggest game actually will be tomorrow, Reds v Waratahs. I'm fortunate enough to go along. I'm taking 20 of my under-12 girls who are playing at half-time. So we're going along to that. That'll be a big game. That'll be a really good one because there's a number of Wallabies and potential Wallabies on show. So have a look for that. And here's hoping that it's at least 2-1 to the Lions, in July and August.
Absolutely. Okay, mate. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your help with this. People watching at home, if you've got any questions, any comments, let's have them down below, and give this video a thumbs up while you're down there. If you don't mind, it helps everybody find it. And Barto, thank you so much again for your time today. It's been wonderful.
No worries, Tim. We'll catch up soon. I'll see you in July, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, people at home, you can subscribe there. You can watch that one next. And don't forget to get out and play.